Hello art friends, Melisa here. Today I'm sharing an altered gift tin inspired by Marta using products from her store, Maremi Small Art. You can find links to supplies in the description box below the video. Just click the Show More button. My gift card tin was really old. I got it at Michael's years ago. I used to love altering tins and then putting little mini albums in them. So I started by putting on a coat of gesso. Next I adhered tissue paper with matte medium. The tissue paper I used is some I hand stamped a while back for a project, and these were some of the leftovers. I could have measured and cut the tissue paper neatly, but I was in a hurry today, so I decided to tear it. It tore pretty easily once it was wet from the matte medium. Now I'm going to repeat the same process on the lid side, but with a different pattern. The size of this tin is 4 3/4 inches by almost 3 inches. Here I'm just showing you some of the sticker pages Marta has in her store. The phrase I end up using on the inside and on the outside cover of the tin are from one of these sets. Next I decided to embellish the tins with some doilies. After I positioned the doilies, I ran my finger around the inside edges of the tin to create some creases. When I get ready to trim them, I'll cut along those crease lines. You can either cut around the edges with scissors or use a paintbrush to add water around the edges and then gently tear. Somewhere in the video I demonstrate how to do that. After playing around with the placement and deciding where I wanted the doilies and florals, I adhered them down. I used matte medium for the doilies because they're pretty thin, and then I ended up using Aleene's tacky glue for the rest of the elements. Next I decided to get a more distressed look by adding some brown. I'm using a coloring crayon by Jane Davenport, but you can use whatever you have on hand. Watercolor paints, or maybe stamp some distress ink on a non-porous surface and then just spritz it with a little water, pick it up with your paintbrush and use that. I ended up not liking how I applied the color directly to the tin. In case you're a beginner and have never used these, there are a lot of companies out there making them now. They're definitely a quick way to get color on your page. However, some of them are a little waxier than others and can leave streaks if you use them directly on your journal page and then go back over them with a wet paintbrush. I haven't compared different brands, but I can tell you that the Jane Davenport ones do seem creamy. I'm sure someone out there in YouTube land has done some research on it if it's something you're interested in purchasing. The other way you can use the crayons instead of applying them directly to your project is to pick the color up from the crayon with a wet brush and then apply the color, which is what I wish I had done. Applying it directly to the tin ended up being too much brown, so I ended up wiping some of it off and then going back over it later with some gesso. Another type of paper Marta has in her store besides rice paper is something called tracing paper. It's semi-opaque and it reminds me of the vellum I used to use when I first started scrapbooking. I found a frame in the set that I have and decided to create a background for the frame out of corrugated cardboard. I trimmed it down to fit just inside the frame, tore away some of the outer paper to expose the corrugated part, and then painted it with some gesso. The corrugated cardboard adds more texture and interest to your project. It also pops the frame up so it's not lying flat against the tin, adding some depth. Here's where I started knocking some of that brown back. So now I'm ready to glue the frame to the cardboard and then add it to the tin. What you do need to know is that fluid can cause the tracing paper to warp. I didn't let the gesso dry completely and then added too much of the Aleene's tacky glue, and I did get a little warping on my frame. Here I decided to add a little more interest to my frame by adding a little piece of doily to it. I had also purchased some wood elements from Marta's store. I'm just showing you the negative part of the product because I'd already punched out the swirlies. I painted them with some gesso before adding them to the project. Then I started adding more gesso to the background to knock that brown back some more. And then decided to add a piece of lace, and it added more texture and interest. I pulled the doily back so I could hear the lace underneath it. I'm done with my background and I've glued the frame in the tin, and now I'm going to add the flowers. I want the flower to kind of pop up like the frame does, so I'm going to use some foam tape to add some dimension there. I actually ended up doubling it up because it wasn't thick enough. So if you need still photos to inspire you while you're creating your own version of this project, you can find them over on my blog. There'll be a link in the description box below the video. Subscribing to my blog is one way to make sure you don't miss any future videos or projects. There's a Feed Blitz tool in the upper left column of the blog. You simply add your email, submit it, and then go to your email and confirm your subscription. You can unsubscribe at any time. This is where I figured out I needed to double up on the foam tape so the flower would be sitting up a little higher over the frame and would swirly. I glued the butterfly down in the center of it and then added some foam tape under the wings to pop it up. The butterfly is from some of the rice paper I got from Marta's store. And this is just another peek at some of the sticker words and phrases you can get from Marta. Some of Marta's sticker words and phrases are on a slightly colored background. The background is mostly white but has some gray in some areas. The sticker phrase I chose for my project was on clear paper, so I adhered it to white paper, trimmed out the words individually, and then glued them down. It's pretty much the same process on this side of the tin. The leaves, flower, butterfly, and the names of the flowers were all rice paper, and then I used a little wooden swirl. I did go back and add a little bit of the brown to the swirly so it looked more cohesive. And then where there was a little too much, I just went back over it with the gesso again. At this time, I have one other video using products from Maremi Small Art store. I'll link you to the playlist in the description box. I just ordered some of Marta's new release and hope to be adding more videos using her products to that playlist very soon. On the outside cover of the lid, I gessoed it, added tissue paper and lace, put a little strip of a doily along the top, and then added another phrase from Marta's collection. I applied water around the floor with a paintbrush and tore away unwanted paper. This technique gives it a softer edge. I adhered trim around the edge of the lid. All right, art friends, that's it for today's project. I hope you enjoyed it and are inspired to create an altered tin of your own. I'd appreciate you hitting the thumbs up button if you liked this video. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe and then click the bell so you'll get notifications when I post new videos. Thanks and have a great day. See you next time.